Do you want to tell me all about your first thing?
Yes.
Okay. You have your computer closed. I don't know if you're trying to save battery or if it's like an eco-friendly thing.
I don't want to distract myself. I don't want to get like a little notification and you're like talking about something important to you. And I'm like, ooh, a sale.
Oh, there's a new Foxtrot comic strip. I'm just going to check in on Doonesbury.
I get email alerts about Doonesbury.
Yeah, we all do. So what's your first thing?
My first thing is Poetry Corner.
Oh, boy.
We haven't done a song in a while. I wanted to do one. Whoa. Griffin has tremendous range. He doesn't make a big deal out of it. You think Griffin can only go high, right? I've only heard him go high. I bet he just goes high.
Like this.
But he goes low,
But I can get down low. Poetry.
The poet I am bringing is Kevin Young.
Okay.
He is a Black American poet, has published 11 books, is currently the poetry editor for The New Yorker.
Okay.
Little magazine.
I've heard of it. Funny strips. Do you want to talk about Doonesbury? These strips blow Doonesbury out of the water. A lot of
comic strips need like 7 or 8 panels. New Yorker is just like, hey, here's some people on a street.
Yeah.
And you're laughing already.
They're saying something so erudite. And it's like a gut buster.
So Kevin Young gave this interview. So he's had just a number of accolades. He was a professor of English and creative writing at Emory. He was a finalist for a National Book Award.
For American Idol Season 4. Got just barely beaten out by Bo Bice.
That season is such a touchstone for you.
I don't know if I don't know anything about Bo Bice or Season 4 of the American Idol. Well, hold on. Okay, let's do this. 1 was Kelly Clarkson. 2 was Clay Aiken, Ruben Steyer. 3 was Fantasia Barrino, I think. 4 is, I think I fell off at 4, honestly.
I watched the Taylor Hicks season. Was it Taylor Hicks?
That may have been 4. Yeah. What were you talking about?
Yeah. He actually grew up in Topeka, Kansas. His father was an ophthalmologist. His mother was a chemist, and they moved like half a dozen times before he was 10. And then ultimately settled in Kansas, which is not actually where he ended up. He ended up going to Harvard and then got his MFA at Brown. So he not currently in Kansas, but I appreciate the Midwestern roots.
Absolutely.
So I found this interview with him in Entertainment Weekly in 2018.
Okay.
But you don't see a lot of poets in Entertainment Weekly.
Poetry can be entertaining on occasion.
Yeah, but usually it's like, the
new Marvel movie.
Yeah, here's the new Robert Downey Jr. film.
Yeah.
Not like, here's this great poet that we talked to. But he gave an interview about poetry, and you know me, I love a clever turn of phrase. But the thing I like about Kevin Young is that he really identifies moments to kind of pay attention, in his poetry. He like gives kind of a unique perspective, and it's not like he's like super clever with language as much as he's just like, hey, look at this thing, and I'm going to talk about it in a way that's meaningful. So in this interview, when he was asked about poetry, he said, a poem can provide testimony. A poem can provide solace. It can provide connection, but it can also provide a sense of something you knew was there, but you couldn't quite put into words. I think they can often articulate for you, and this is true for the poet and for the reader, something you didn't quite know. The sense of mystery, but also of revelation is what I turn to poems for. They're able to embody experience. We need more of that.
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah, I felt like he really got it, kind of the thing, because I'm. It's not like I exclusively read poetry. I appreciate a lot of forms of literature,
right?
But there's something special about poetry for me, and I feel like he really kind of captured it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read a poem of his called "Expecting." I wanted to give just kind of a content warning that this is about pregnancy, specifically his wife's pregnancy. Grave, my wife lies back, hands cross her chest, while the doctor searches early for your heartbeat, peach pit unripe, plum pulls out the world's worst boombox. A Mr. Microphone to broadcast your mother's lifting belly. The whoosh and bellows of mama's body, and beneath it nothing. Beneath the slow stutter of her heart, nothing. The doctor trying again to find you. Fragile fern, snowflake, nothing. After, my wife will say in fear and patience, she went beyond her body, this tiny room, into the ether. For now, we spelunk for you one last time. Lost canary, miner of coal and chalk, lungs not yet black. I hold my wife's feet to keep her here, and me trying not to dive starboard to seek you in the dark water. And there it is, faint, an echo, faster and further away than mother's, all beatbox and fuzzy feedback. You are like hearing hip-hop for the first time, power hijacked from a lamppost, all promise. You couldn't sound better, breakdancer, my favorite song bumping from a passing car. You've snuck into the club underage and stayed. Only later, much, will your mother begin to believe you're drumming in the distance. My Kansas City and Congo Square, this jazz band vamping on inside her. I love the tension of that poem.
That's one of my favorite poems I think I've ever heard in my entire life.
There are a lot of poems about pregnancy, not a lot from the male perspective, which is exciting about this one. But also just kind of the tension of that experience in the room when you're like waiting for that baby's heartbeat. And then just kind of the way he describes it. Like, it's not overly sentimental. It's not like, this being transcending us and embodying our spirits as one, it's like...
No, it's about, it more sort of accurately encompasses, that's not, when we're in the room for an ultrasound, I'm not like, oh, holy endeavor of, like, for me, it's like, oh shit, oh God, oh no, oh please, oh God. Yeah! Like, it's like absolute mortal existential terror to like the most, to like excitement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also wanted to use this poem to say that Griffin and I are expecting another child.
Baby! So I really, really wanted Rachel to announce that. Well, first of all, this is our first time like talking about this outside of like our private like family group.
Yeah.
And I really wanted Rachel to announce it in a joke that she told me while we were lying in bed one night. It was fairly recently after like the first ultrasound. And I like to, once I've consumed a large meal and I'm feeling kind of sick, I will sometimes do a Dave Matthews impression.
Yeah, I feel like our listeners know this. I have mentioned this before.
Where I I eat too much. Mm-hmm. And Rachel turned that back on me in a way that is, I'm bringing this up, I'm making such a deal about it because it's the hardest I've laughed this entire awful, rotten year. And I'm hoping that Rachel can sort of recreate the delivery.
Yeah, it was one of those. So when I tell a joke to Griffin that is going to involve some voice work, I have a tendency to kind of play it out in my head and figure out if I can pull it off. And so I was laying there and I was thinking about it and we were quiet. And then I was like, talking about how my stomach hurt. And then I was like, I ate too much because I'm having a baby. And Griffin was like, that has to be how you tell.
The poem was beautiful. Literally maybe my favorite poem I've ever heard in my entire life. But I do think we missed a trick.
We've done both.
We've done
it my way and your way.
So we're having a little boy.
Yeah, another baby boy.
And do next April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day. Most likely we'll be here earlier, probably on my birthday.
On Rachel's birthday, March 29th. So this is also our way of announcing that our schedule is going to be very erratic starting end of March 2021. And then from that point onward forever, probably just a little more erratic than it is now because we'll have 2 of them.
We're very excited, though.
We're extremely excited.
And I wanted to share because obviously it's something that is impacting our lives a lot.
Yeah.
And I would like to be able to talk about on this show, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
So thank you, Kevin Young, for your poem.
For your poem. It made me very emotional in a way that I don't think a poem on this show has done before.
It's hard for me to read any poem right now.
Yes. By the way, when Rachel cried about the umbrella,
the umbrella poem,
the umbrella mom poem. If you're just wondering, yes, there was a certain amount that was this applied some English to that particular ball.
A lot of times I read a poem and I think, oh, this will be good, and then I try to read it out loud, and I'm like, oh, this is much harder.
Yeah. Hey, can I steal you away?
Yes.